So boom. All right. Let's review what we did last time. So we completed the first three phases of Koheles, I think. So we had Yud Beis through Tes Vav, which is the what do you call it? The intro to the experiment. Then we had phase one, which is Chachma as a panacea. Chachma with the expectation that it's going to somehow solve all your problems or remove the pain from reality. And the result he found was that it created more pain because it reveals truths that you can't unsee. And it takes things that were in the realm of the possible in your mind and puts it in the realm of the necessary. And like Ibn Ezra says, like, you can't enjoy your wealth because it's going to go away, and you can't enjoy your kids because they might die, and like I forgot who pointed this out, but like it's not like he learned new information. It's that the life of Chacham made all these things real to him. The fool can go along in a blissfully ignorant way and push those things out of his mind, but the Chacham who's thinking about knowledge in a real way and trying to live in accordance with it, those things become real to him and he can't just deny it. And so that created anger and pain, anger being the fact that reality doesn't go in line with his desires, and the pain in the sense that he has to live with that conflict. Okay, so that was phase one. Phase two, he goes to the opposite extreme. He tries to escape from the Chachma into a life of partying, drinking, any sort of escape. And then his conclusion there is l'schok amarti meholal u'lesimcha ma'azo osa. So meholal is its madness, meaning it doesn't actually change anything. And simcha ma'azo osa is he's not being productive. There's this need to accomplish something in life and he's not accomplishing anything. So then he goes to phase three, which is to try to have a middle ground. So he's operating with Chachma, he's drinking wine, but not to the point of drunkenness. And he is trying to maximize all of the pleasures of Olam Hazeh. So he's building things, he's expanding his wealth, he's expanding his reputation, he's acquiring objects, he's enjoying life to the extent that he can enjoy it, and he has a measure of success. Is ufanisi ani b'chol ma'asai? Sorry. Lo manati es libi mikol simcha. I didn't withhold my heart from any joy. Ki libi sameach mikol amali. My heart was happy with everything that I did, with all my toil. And that was my portion in everything, in everything that I did. So he's happy. But then, ufanisi ani b'chol ma'asai she'asu yadai uva shani amalti lasos v'hinei kol heva urus ruach v'ein yisron takas hashemesh. And so I turned to all of my actions that I did and the toil that I toiled, and everything was hevel and urus ruach, and there's no yisron under the sun. So there we said that when you're involved and you're expending all of your energy in the involvement in applying your chachma to the world, so then there's no energy left to reflect on the self and to ask yourself, what is the significance of all this? Or what did I actually accomplish? But then once you're done, and that it frees up that psychological energy, which then can examine yourself and evaluate yourself in the grand scheme of things, then you're like, okay, what did this amount to? I'm not going to take it with me. It's nothing. What did I really accomplish? And then that's when you feel hevel. So I think that's where we got to at the end of last time. I guess any questions on that? I don't know how many people thought about that in any capacity, or had lingering questions from last time. Okay, so now we get to the difficult part, where we have to differentiate between. So phase four, you're going to see as we read this, very similar. It's Chachma centric. So we're going to have to differentiate between this phase one and phase three. Okay, so let's read this here. So we're at 12, and this is also a little short. Okay, ufanisi ani liros Chachma v'holelos v'sichlos. So I turned to see wisdom and madness and foolishness or ignorance. Ki meh ha'adam sheyavo acharei hamelech is asher kavar asuhu. I have never understood that. We might need to work on it. What is man who comes after the king that he has already done? Don't know what that means. We can look at that later. It's a minor point for our purposes, but we can look at that if we have time. Okay, but then here's the main part of phase four. So I saw sheish yisron lachachma mina sichlos, that there is an advantage of chachma over foolishness. Ki yisron ha'or min ha'choshech, like the advantage of light over darkness. So that's a good thing. Hechacham inav birosho, v'aksil b'choshech holech. The chacham's eyes are in his head, and the fool walks in darkness. So far, so good. But then mid-pasuk, v'yadati gam ani shemikra echad yikra es kulam. I knew that one chance occurrence or one fate will befall them all. V'amarati ani belibi, and I said in my heart, kimikre haksil gam ani yikreni. Like the fate of the fool, also this will befall me. V'lama chachamti ani az yoser. And what, for what reason did I get wiser? Did I make myself wiser? V'dibarti belibi shagam havel. And I said in my heart that this is also havel. Ki ein zichron lechacham im haksil laolam. Because there's no memory for the chacham with the ksil forever. B'shekavar hayamim habaim, because in the many days that will come, hakol nishkach, everything will be forgotten. Ve'ech yamus hachacham im haksil. And how can the chacham die with a fool? V'sanesi ani esachayim, and I hated life. Okay, the strongest words yet. Not just frustration, not just futile. I hated life. Ki ra alai hamasa shenasa tachas hashamesh, because it was evil upon me, or harmful upon me, or bad upon me, the deed that is done under the sun. Ki akol hevel urus ruah, because everything is a futility and a frustration of the spirit. V'sanesi ani es kol amali, and I hated all of my toil. Shani amal tachas hashemesh. Sorry, I think this is actually the next phase. Let's skip that for now. Yeah, even though it doesn't look like he's trying something else. So this is one we can argue about whether these are two phases or one, but definitely there's something here that we can think about. So I guess the question is like this. So again, our usual questions: what is he? What Yisron was he chasing here? And then the nuanced question is: what's the difference between this, relationship to Chachma and phase 3 and phase 1, where he also looked at Chachma? Then why did he choose this one next? And then what conclusion did he find? What do you say?
Could I add a question maybe?
Yes, please do.
It seems like maybe it was working, or he thought it was working at one point, and then it stopped working. So like, what stopped working about it?
Right. Yeah. Okay, good. So that you're right. That is similar to phase 3, right? Where he said, he seemed to say that Chachma is greater than foolishness. So, yeah, that seemed to be working. And then I guess we can add a question also. What's with the hatred? We've defined the term hevel, where you're looking for something that will solve all your problems and make you happy, and you don't find it, and that feels like hevel. And then the frustration is the sharp pain of that experience. But then what's the hatred of life? That's a very strong statement.
What indicates that this is even an experiment so much as just him evaluating Chachma on its own?
Well, I guess I'm taking the pesukim literally here, that this entire thing, well, okay, let me put it this way. The context definitely seems like an actual experiment. I have no reason to take this non-literally, phases 1, 2, and 3. Here, I see what you mean, which is that he's just thinking about Chachma. It's not like he's going out and doing different things. So in that sense, I'd be willing to accept the fact that this was not a distinct phase of his life, but it is a distinct phase of his inquiry.
Mm-hmm.
So maybe it's not proper to call it an experiment, but it is proper to call it a phase of the investigation.
Right.
Yeah. Yeah, you're right.
I have a question about this also.
Yeah, sure.
Which is, I guess we're asking like what Yisron is he chasing, but what even is his Havamina? Is he comparing Chachma and Sichlus and like weighing them to see what's better?
It does look like that, right? And I guess we could add to that. So in addition to saying what's his Havamina, he did something similar in the beginning of phase 3. That was Tarti belibi in pasuk Gimel. Tarti belibi bayayin es basari belibi nohe b'chachma v'le'echos b'sichlos. Asher ere eze tov livnei ha'adam asher yasu takas hashemesh. So I wanted to grab onto sichlus. So the Ibn Ezra had the statement there, by the way, that let me just look at it inside again. Oops, sorry, hold on just a second here. I forgot to close that Ibn Ezra Ibn Ezra had said by phase 3 Sichlus, which he I guess he had a different spelling. I don't know. Shu taivas zeh ha'olam. So he said foolishness does not mean like foolishness in a Mishlaic sense of like acting foolishly, but it's a reference to the desires of this world. Let's see if he says anything by the foolishness in phase 4. Sichlus. Yeah, he says the same thing, right? So he says here, Ufanisi hainin ani hine his asakti b'chachma. I involved myself in chachma, but uvahololos shihu hayayin. Oh, so look, the way that Ibn Ezra is talking about it, it looks like he's actually learning this as part of phase 3, because it's the same 3 things: is involvement in chachma, involvement in wine, babur shemishtakar mimeni is holav yishtagea. Okay, I don't think it means he's getting drunk, but it means that because he said before that his lave was noeg b'chachma, and in sichlos hu habinyan uknos hahon, that's building and acquiring of wealth. Yeah, so maybe Ibn Ezra is learning this as part of phase 3, and that this panisi is the same panisi in Yud Aleph. But to answer your question, what's the havmina? So I don't think there's a real havmina for foolishness. I think that I like Ibn Ezra's pshat that the foolishness here just means pursuit of material pleasures.
Yeah, that makes more sense.
Yeah,
I think.
And you could say that that's a stretch. You could say that that's not what sichlos means, but maybe from Shlomo Melech's perspective, where chachma based on the design of man should be the real thing, then expending your energy in olam hazeh is sichlos in reference to that. Yeah, so what do you say? What is he doing here? And now we have this open question: is this part of phase 3, or is this a new phase? And the support for the fact that it's part of phase 3 not only is from Ibn Ezra that he has the same 3 components, but what we mentioned before is that he's not doing anything new here. He's doing the same. Either he's doing the same 3 things, or he's just not engaging in any new action. He's just thinking this through.
What is the benefit to say that it is a new phase? Like, what prompts you to say that?
Because I like the number 4. No. What prompts me is that there's the pattern of he thinks it's good and then he says it's hevel.
Okay.
Yeah. And also Fanisi seems to be a different perspective,
Yeah, that's what I was thinking.
Definitely in Yud Aleph, it was a different perspective. So it's like a Fanisi. I looked back at again, that's why I'm saying I think the best candidate right now is like it's a new phase in the investigation, not necessarily a new phase in the lifestyle exploration. So one clue here, okay, is what new element is introduced here that is not introduced previously?
Maybe
You said Sichlus?
Yeah.
So Sichlus was introduced before. That was in Gimel.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. What do you say, Tamar?
comparison, maybe. Like it seems like he's
so-
comparing things directly now.
Yeah, so that's one route you can take, right? You can say that in Gimel he is doing both, and in phase 3 he's doing both, and in phase 4 he's comparing them. Yisron Chachma Min HaSichlos, right? Yeah. I guess I was thinking what new element enters into the picture in his conclusion that might shed a light on this.
Hate.
So hate is in his reaction. That's true, right? Emotionally, his reaction is hate. But it seems like there's a new reality that dawns on him that he hadn't thought about before.
It seems like the fact that he's gonna die now
Yes.
takes him
Death.
like into a new direction.
Yeah, right. So there's a reputation that Sefer Koheles has for being preoccupied with death, but people don't realize, other than that pasuk Dalet in Perek Aleph of Dor Holech V'Dor Ba, he hasn't really talked about death until just now. That I'm going to die just like the fool, and therefore, what's the point? So I feel like that might be a clue in figuring out what he was trying to get out of Chachma here. That the fact that the refutation or the the bubble bursting, was I'm going to die just like the fool. So what's the point? That might shed light on what was he looking for.
He wants to live forever, I guess.
Yeah, right. I mean, it sounds like this. This is really where the immortality fantasy came in here, right? And for those not familiar with immortality fantasy, let's just talk a little bit about that. Actually, you know what? Sorry, I keep on forgetting. I think of this as like a yeshiva shiur, and I still keep on forgetting that I have this whole trove of PowerPoints from when I went over this in high school. I got to think about it. Okay, so let me just actually show you what I had here, because I isolated a couple sources here. Give me a second. Where did I put it?
What is a shnach?
Oh, yeah. So let me just quickly walk you through this as a life tip. So my system here is I know where everything is, and it's very organized because I have a code. So the first 2 letters are the school I taught at. Then I've got a 3 or 4 letter code for the subject and the grade and then the year. So I can instantly find anything that I have ever taught because I know who I taught it to. And I can instantly go. So let's see, this is Shalhevet Nach 11, fall semester Koheles, November 8th, 2019, phases 4 and 5, so when you teach a bunch of classes like I do, then it pays to know where your stuff is, so it's a good, and it's a good life tip also, because like if you come up with a good enough organization scheme early on in life, then it'll pay off in dividends. Like I've now got, like I've been teaching high school for 11 years, I know exactly where everything is. And so for your own notes and stuff, like, I don't know how many of you take notes, like privately that you keep on your computer, but like it pays off. That's my tip, my life tip there. All right. Hold on here. This was phase 4. Yeah. Oh, so you know what? So this was the, oh yeah. Okay. So this is what I came up with last time. Okay. And let's review this, because remember, I am taking my old approach, but I want to refine this. Okay. So, so I actually got to go back a little bit. Hold on. Oh, so this was, yeah. Oh, see, you guys, I don't give you homework, So the way I would do this in high school was we would set it up, and then I would give them homework to try to answer all of the questions, and then we would go through all of their answers, and then we would then go to the Mefarshim more to our things. So we got to skip all of their answers here. Okay, so we had 3 questions here. So what was Koheles chasing in this phase? So what I said last time, and we'll see if this makes sense now. So in phase 1, he looked to Chachma as a panacea, a solution to all of life's problems. Here, this is a much more modest goal, is he's just looking for the benefits of the Chachma lifestyle to see whether it was more worthwhile than the alternative, than foolishness. And this is like the book of Mishlei, is like, look at the Chacham and look at the fool and compare them, who gets the better results. And so obviously what you're going to find out is that the Chacham enjoys life more than the fool, and this actually was something that I think I actually have a better answer to the question too than what I'm going to write here. So what I wrote was, in phase 3, then he experienced the full benefits of Chachma, but he overshot it, trying to get the ultimate happiness from a life of physical and psychological enjoyment. Here, maybe this is actually good. I do accept this answer. So in phase 4, he's trying to accept Chachma for what it is, just a more enjoyable life. In other words, what ruined phase 3 was he's trying to look for a greater significance to his entire life. Like, what did I achieve, but he realized that that's just going to be futile, and you can't really achieve anything, so now he's just looking for, okay, in this brief span of life that I have, what is going to lead to the most enjoyment? So this is like the Mishlei phase. Okay. Like what is going to be the most enjoyable life? Okay. So what did he find? So does that make sense for given the pesukim that he said there? What do you think?
What does ultimate happiness mean?
Ultimate happiness is like, yeah, good question. So just descriptively, I feel like phase 3 was a very goal-oriented approach that he tried to, he emphasized that I did this more than anyone before me, all my predecessors. And I wanted to satisfy my every desire, kol asher shalunai lo manati mehem kol simcha, whatever the lashon is, So it's like this achievement-based thing, and that's really where it got him, is that he realized that in the grand scheme of things, I didn't achieve anything, so that's what I mean by the ultimate happiness. So this is a much more humble goal, which maybe he chose also because it on the surface does not seem like a yisron. It's just like, okay, I got 70 years, or if I'm lucky 80 years, and I'm going to try to make the most out of it and enjoy myself.
Wait, but it seems like the fact that he's gonna die was like painful to him. So it seems like
that's the refutation, right?
Uh-huh.
Yeah, so let's go to that, and then we could critique it if need be. So what conclusion did he reach? So he first he appreciated the benefits of the Chachma lifestyle, but then he realized, oh, so this is different then. Okay, so he realized it does not guarantee a better life. Okay, why? Because the Chacham might suffer the same fate as the fool. Meaning, I think when I don't know about you, when I first read this tonight, I was thinking I will ultimately die just like the fool. But really, the lashon uses is mikra. Mikra doesn't point to like natural death. Mikra points to something can happen to you, that can cause you to die. And it's not even necessarily that he's gonna. I mean, he does talk about death, but like you could take all the steps to live a good life in Chachma, and then you could be plagued by something beyond your control. I'm going to pause this for a second and say an example and then go on. So not only that, but then, and this is something this is what makes me wonder whether this is part of the next phase. We'll see when we do the next phase later on, that there's no guarantee that the Chacham is going to be remembered. Okay, so that really introduces the point about the immortality fantasy, as like Zev was saying here. So you could object to this and say, well, everyone knows that you're going to die. It's obvious, right? But again, this is for high school students, right? So I said that it's true we know we're going to die, but it's not real to us, right? So this is the immortality fantasy, the idea that you're going to live forever, and it's something that the younger you are, the more you just feel. You just don't think. So this was actually very handy when I was teaching in Shalhavit, because we taught, our school was in the Temple Hill building, and they had this is a conservative temple. They had senior citizens and senior citizens events, so like whenever I would teach this, and they would always have these senior citizen events right outside of our classroom in the ballroom right across from the hall. So whenever we would say this, then like whenever we would get to this phase, I would be like, there'd be a student who'd be like, what do you mean that we think we're gonna live forever? And I'm like, when you walked past that 80-year-old woman in the hallway, did you think to yourself, I'm gonna be like that? And there's always a kid who has this like ashen white look on her face, like she's never considered that before, like it just hits you. And then I say and that's only if you're lucky, like if you don't die by that time, it's just the thought of death never actually enters into your mind, and you don't think of yourself like getting old and, and like it's an interesting thing. Like I think everyone in this year is still very young, but like you go through phases where like, you start to realize like your friends are losing their hair, or you're losing your hair. I'm in the point where I'm seeing pictures of my old students like losing their hair, and I'm like, wow, that makes me like realize like age is a real thing, and then you realize like trends, things that you took as a feature of the world are now viewed as like antiques, and then you feel like the first time that you have like a pain in your back, and then that's when it starts to hit you that like you're not going to live forever, or your metabolism changes. That's a killer, and so these are things where like intellectually everyone knows that they get old and that they die, but it's not real to you, and it is lurking under the surface in ways that you're not aware of. There's a good shiur that I recommend by Rabbi Chait. I mentioned this in our tefillah class last night. Last night, that there's the famous Gemara that the Satan the Yetzer Hara and the Malach HaMavis are all the same thing. So there's a shiur called by Rebbe Chait called the I forgot what order it's in, the Yetzer Hara, the Satan, and the Malach HaMavis, and in it he explains if they are all the same three things, then why do Chazal call them by different names? Like there's got to be a reason why they have these three terms. So he had a theory. I don't remember what it was because I haven't listened to the shiur in a long time. But my takeaway from it was that it's called the Yetzer Hara when it's experienced as an internal drive. So let's say, for example, like the appetites, the instincts. So there, Chazal will talk about it as the Yetzer Hara. It's called the Satan when it is an external temptation that awakens you. That's when Chazal call it the Satan. And it's called the Malach HaMavis when the cause of your hate is the immortality fantasy. And that was the first shiur, when I listened to that shiur, whenever it was, that was the first time I realized, like, wow, like, at least according to Chazal, according to Rabbi Chait, the immortality fantasy is up there ranking with the Yetzer Hara and like the Satan, that it's that, like, the notion that you're going to live forever is that big of a thing, that it influences you on that profound of a level. And this great pasuk, which is really in the next parak, I think really expresses it. If you think that this is some sort of like Freudian projection onto Chumash, onto Tanakh. So Ibn Ezra says, so the pasuk in Gimel Yud Aleph, this is after the Eis Laleres Eis Lamus. So he says, Es hakol asa yafe bito, gam ha'ol es ha'olam nasam b'libam. Also eternity he placed in their hearts, right? Because remember in Tanakh, olam does not mean world, it means eternity. So that man cannot comprehend the act that God has done from beginning to end. Now, we're going to have to analyze that in context, but out of context, I want to show you this Ibn Ezra here. What does it mean that God placed eternity in their hearts? So Ibn Ezra says, Inyan gam es olam nasam blibam, the idea of also eternity he placed into their hearts. Shebnei adam misaskim ki'ilu yichyu la'olam, means that people busy themselves as though they will live forever. Ubavur lo yavinu ma'aseh elokim mirosh hatzof. Bavur hisaskam lo yavinu ma'aseh elokim mirosh hatzof. And because of their involvement, they don't contemplate the work of God from beginning to end. So the idea is that you have this underlying feeling that you're going to live forever, and because of that, then it blinds you to your priorities. It blinds you to your vulnerability. And in our case, hold on, it blinded him. I'm just got to close this window now because we're done with this PowerPoint for now. Oh man, this is really slowing down here. It blinded him to the fact that that he's subject to the same fate as the fool. So to unify this, I'm delaying here. I think I'm delayed. You know what? I'm just going to leave the room for 1 second. I'll come back. Maybe that'll help. I'll be right back. Wait, you know what? I'm going to pause the recording. I'm not delayed for you?
You stopped delaying, yeah.
Oh, I did? Okay. All right, so I'll stay. All right. Yeah, so just to summarize here. So phase 4, to me, it seems like is trying out just the benefits of Chachma, not trying for some ultimate like accomplishment, but just I'm going to live a happy life based on Chachma, and then the immortality fantasy kills him because it doesn't kill him. Sorry, it hits him like I can't enjoy this because I know I'm going to die, and that's really where it gets him. And not only am I not going to enjoy this because I'm going to die, but like I can live with all this Chachma lifestyle and like get these benefits. But if at the end of the day the fool is subject to the same things, like maybe it's not worth it. So what we have to evaluate is like, does that make sense? Like, is this a good theory? Does that make sense in terms of him? What do you say?
Well, I mean, for like, in terms of like happiness for his life, it doesn't really matter whether he's going to live forever or not. Like, he just has to figure out what the best way to live is.
Right. So the question though is like, what? Apparently that didn't work, right? Because that's that's what he tried, right? He said that it is a better life, right? So, what we have to do, look, there is a philosophy in the world that took this and ran with it, which I haven't studied firsthand. But you know what I'm talking about? And maybe I'm just basing a hearsay here. What secular philosophy? What was that, Yaakov?
I said no.
Okay.
With nihilism.
Yeah, nihilism, right? I mean, all of the again, I have not studied the works of the nihilists, but like, you know, I only follow nihilist memes, but all of the memes and quotes say that that like the whole idea is like the fact that you could die at any minute or the fact that you will die ruins the experience of happiness that you get from living life in accordance with Chachma. So what's the point? And I agree with what Zev is saying that that's not rational, you know, but apparently there is a part of man's psyche that feels despondent based on that, you know, and maybe this is going to lead us to like I hated life, you know, because I think this is a half answer to I hated life, because up until now he's in life and he's looking for the best route to happiness within life. But this is the first time now where he's stepping and looking at life itself and saying, well, the fact that life is this fleeting thing that could just end at any second, what's the point of it? You know, what is the point of life itself?
I guess you could turn yourself toward things that are actually like eternal, I guess. And like, you know, like the one way where you like could sort of have an like immortal life, I guess.
Right.
Like through, I guess, actual chachma. I don't know
Right.
exactly
So
how different.
from what we read earlier in the intro, it seems like that is going to be related to his conclusion, because he mentioned that the Havel Havalim is only Tachas Shemesh, but Kodem Shemesh, you know, in the realm of the non-physical things, then that's really where these things don't apply. Apparently, though, that's not psychologically simple, right? Like, you can say that, but at the same time, you can still get hit by a car, or you can still find out that you have cancer, or you can still like, you know, you still age. So I feel like maybe that, you know, this is one of the things, like they're the people who will read Koheles and get to the end and be, oh, it says sof devar kol nishma es elokim rav es mitzvos shmor kizeh all of them, you know, just focus on mitzvos and your elokim, and then that's it, you know. So they've missed the entire middle of the book, and I feel like the part of the whole book is grappling with that part of you that resists, you know, that answer. Like, yes, objectively speaking, what you're saying is true, that you should therefore spend your life on things that are eternal, but does that really satisfy this part of you? Does that really quell these insecurities? And we're going to see later on, he's going to question the very notion of olam haba, you know, of like, yes, there is a reality of olam haba, but does that allay this fear or this insecurity here? So you're right, but you're wrong. You're right philosophically, but you're wrong existentially. You know, like saying this and this being true doesn't help you with the struggle of happiness. And you see, I don't know how many of you are following the Marcus Aurelius stuff that I've been doing. You see, that's a good example. Here you have a guy who is literally the king of the world, right? He's literally the king at the height of the Roman Empire, you know, and has chachma and has wealth and has fame. And what is he thinking about? The fact that he's going to die. Now he's doing it from the prepper perspective. He's saying like, you know, because I'm going to die, like I need to realize what all this stuff is really worth. But you see that it's on his mind, like it's weighing on his mind, and it's causing him to like, you know, reevaluate the value of everything he's doing. So, you know, this is something that we need to grapple with. So what I'm trying to do is I'm trying to like show how can someone like Shlomo, who knows about eternity and knows about the eternity of the soul, how can he say something this drastic, you know, like I hated life. And I'm saying that either he was literally experiencing these feelings, or he's just trying to show you how powerful the immortality fantasy is, and how it can just cut through all of the pleasure you're having and just knowing that you're going to die, you know? So let's do this. Okay. Since we got about 20 minutes, a little bit less, let's read the last phase and try to define it. And then what we can plan to do for next time is try to get the bird's eye view of all of them and see, now that we've seen like all of them, see them in sequence, and then either refine it or move on. Okay. Yud Ches, V'sanesi ani, and again, I don't know if this is part of phase 4 or not. I like saying this is a different phase. Yeah, you have a question?
Yeah, sorry. Just about the last one. What is his point about in zichron lechacham yom?
Right. So this is the thing that makes me question whether maybe, in others, maybe you should go like this. Hold on. You'll see what I mean. All right, let's read phase 5, okay? And maybe you'll see why it's like this. V'sanesi ani, I'll separate this for now, just as the question. V'sanesi ani es kol amali she'ani amel tachas hashemesh she'ani chenu la'adam she'yihye acharai. I hated all of my toil that I toiled under the sun, that I will leave it to a person after me. Okay, so now he's talking what's going to happen to all my stuff. Umi yodea hechacham yihye osachal. Who knows whether he's going to be whether the person I leave it to is going to be a wise or a fool. V'yishlat b'chol amali she'amalti v'shechachamti tachas hashamesh. And he will dominate, he will control all of my toil that I toiled and all my chachma under the sun, and all that I became wise under the sun. Gamze havel. This is also futile. The sabosi ani, and I don't know exactly how to translate sabosi. We can look it up in the Mikros Gedolos if we have time. I circled back, leyaesh es lipi, yeush, right? To give up hope, to despair, my heart. Al kol amali, on all of my toil, shamati takas shemesh, that I toiled under the sun. Ki yesh adam, because there is a person, she'amalo b'chachma uvadas uvakishron, who toiled in wisdom and in knowledge and in perfection. Ul adam shelo amabo, and to a person who didn't toil for it, yitneh chalko, he's going to give his portion. Gamze hevel v'ra'araba. So I worked so hard, I'm going to give my stuff to this guy, this bum. Ki meh hoveh la'adam b'chol amalo uvarayon libo. What is this is a hard word to translate. Hoveh. I don't know if it's using this phrase anywhere in Tanakh, right? Hoveh as a word. What is for a person in all of his toil and in the thoughts of his heart, or the frustration of his heart? Shu amal tachas hashemesh. Ki chol yamav machovim. All his days are painful. The chas inyano, and anger is their character. Gam b'layla lo shachav libo. Even at night, his heart doesn't rest. Gam ze havelhu. This is also futile. In tov ba'adam. All right, this is where he says something that sounds like a conclusion. Okay, we'll have to evaluate this, and maybe we'll portion it off. In fact, you know what? Yes, let's actually portion this off. Okay, I think this is the end of phase 5 here. Okay, so what new element is introduced in phase 5? Which again clearly is related to phase 4.
The inheritance of his stuff.
Yeah, right. The inheritance of his stuff. So why does this follow from phase 4?
Because after you die, your stuff gets inherited.
Right, but in phase 4, he was looking for immortality, right? So what is this? Why does he go here now?
He realized he can't reach it.
So he can't reach it, but what could reach it?
His stuff.
stuff.
It's stuff, right? So we call this a legacy, right? So he can't get immortality through his person, but maybe he can get immortality through his legacy, right? Leaving his stuff back, and everyone will say, "Oh, this is Shlomo's stuff," right? For example, okay, Shlomo will leave behind a great malchus, a unified malchus of 12 tribes. And how did that work out for him? Not so good, right? His son was the Sachal, right? And his whole legacy was destroyed there, right? So like, so living through your stuff, I think I told this in this example earlier in the shiur, but I'll say it again because I don't think everyone was here at the time, that my physics teacher in high school in 12th grade, we called him Dr. Arioni, because he had a PhD in art and in like astrophysics, okay? And he was one of the ones who worked on the first space station. And his dream, when we said we got into some talk about like in class, some off-topic thing, and he said his dream was to take one of his paintings and launch it out there into space. And when we said why, he said, so it'll be out there forever. Okay, and we didn't ask him the second why, but like this feeling that like a part of me will be out there forever. I can live through my legacy, and he's realizing, it's funny, he doesn't realize that that's a fantasy. Like really, it's fantasy. You're not gonna be around to enjoy it. That's really the real refutation. But he realizes, I guess, a more tangible problem, which is who's to say that your legacy will even last? maybe Doc will succeed in launching a painting, and maybe some space junk is going to like smash it up, and so it's not even going to be out there. So so he's not even going to get it. So regarding your question, Isaac, about the Zichron, that's why I'm kind of uncertain how to classify Tes Zayin and Yud Zayin. That Tes Zayin, he seems to be looking at, you could say Tes Zayin is an extension of the immortality fantasy point. Not only will I die, but I won't even be remembered. Okay. Or it's a lead into the legacy point, which is at least my memory will go on. But then I don't know if my memory will really go on. And by the way, just to refute to address the side question here, you could say the thing. Well, clearly Shlomo does have a legacy because we're learning his books right now. Over 2,500 years right after he died. Okay, so how would you respond to that?
There's still time.
There's still time, right? We might forget it, right? That's true. That's a good point. I had a different response. Anyone else have a different response? I mean, you're 100% correct, but I think there's a more universal response.
What did that do for him exactly?
Okay, so good. So one thing is like, what did that do for him, right? He's not around to enjoy it.
There's questions whether it even was him or not.
Okay, that's true. Yeah, I think the real refutation though is how many Shlomos have there been that we've forgotten, right? Like he got lucky, like if it weren't for the fact that there was a Plato who wrote down Socrates' teachings, we would not know of Socrates, right? He would have been forgotten with Athens, and if it weren't for the fact that Plato's dialogues were resurrected by Muslims, so then they would have been forgotten and not introduced to past the Dark Ages, and we have, look, I mean, not to induce anyone to tear Kriya right now, you have the Library of Alexandria, right? That who knows what was lost in the Library of Alexandria, or who knows what Chachamim had teachings that were Baal Peh, that were never written down, that were lost to all time, and so like, we have our in our Masorah, we have, so many Chachamim who have written works that were lost and that Al HaTorah hasn't restored yet. Or just things that like, that we don't know of, like, even they say that like, Shlomo Melech wrote other mashalim that we don't have access to, or he wrote that Sefer HaRefuah, or like, Avram, there's all these books that are that people, that we have a tradition that they wrote, or you have like all of those Tanaim and Savarayim who, or like certain Gaonim who just, we don't have any records of their teachings, and if it weren't for the few people who wrote down their names, we wouldn't even know their names. So my point is that like, even Shlomo, he could still say, it's all up to Mikra. Like, he could get lucky and his works will be preserved, or maybe not, so there's just no guarantee. So it's the security that's bothering him in phase 4. The fact that like I know I'm living the best lifestyle. I know Chachma is better than Sichlus, but I could get hit by a car. I could get cancer. I could be forgotten. And that is inhibiting his enjoyment right now.
And on the flip side, a seal could be remembered, right?
Yes, right. We remember a lot of Ksilim. That's true. Right. I mean, like, maybe this is optimistic. Well, look, I'm judging by, you look at Rome. Rome lasted a long time. And there are Roman histories, and we remember the good emperors and we remember the bad emperors, everyone knows Caligula, like, and he was a Xil, and he's remembered forever. So yeah. By the way, that's another dig against the legacies here. I'll tell you a point and then a side point. The point is the pyramids lasted, right? But name the guy who designed them, right? No one knows who he is, right? Yeah. So like, even if the physical objects that you produced last, like, it's not even a guarantee that you're going to get the credit. And that's really what you're after. I'll leave the side point aside because it's not really relevant. Yeah.
Yeah, is it also possible that part of the point that's being made is that if a chacham is at work, so to speak, and he's doing, chachma stuff, he's more likely to be remembered if he completes his work and has a total job done. And I
Mhm.
think what's very unsettling is that you can be dedicating your whole life to chachma, and then you can die about halfway through, and then none of, because you died halfway, none of it's going to be remembered. And then in which case you should have just had fun for all that time.
Right. Yeah. I mean, I actually hold on just 1 second here. I think I gave. I think that point was so important that I think I put examples here. Give me 1 second here. Oh, these points are relevant also, but oh no, I gave examples earlier, right? But there are a bunch of people who, let's say, like Martin Luther King Jr., right? JFK. These people got or a lot of the Rishonim, or like the Chachamim and the Bali Masorah died very young, and like you think, what could they have done if they had made it? If they had like lasted longer. Bruce Lee, like that's my Bruce, I'm now older than Bruce Lee was, and like Bruce Lee is like responsible for all of my teaching philosophy. What could he have done if he had lived? So yeah, that's a good point. I want to show you the statistic here. Hold on. This is another thing which so I got, where did I cite the source here? Yeah. Nearly 60% of the time, a wealthy family's money will be used up by the children of the person who made the wealth. In 90% of the cases, it's gone by the time the grandchildren die. So if you're talking about wealth as a thing, it really is not going to last. And like that's kind of the problem, because you're kind of feeding Ksilim, by letting them have wealth in a way that you're not disciplining them. Yeah, Joe.
Yeah, so it's a bit of a technical point, but how do they define wealth there?
These were, I think, this is about billionaires.
Wow.
So billionaires, or like billionaires adjusted by inflation. And then this is another example here from another book. Perhaps the most famous example is the Vanderbilt family. Cornelius Vanderbilt, the patriarch, built a fortune on railroads and shipping during the mid-1800s. Adjusted for the size of the economy, he was the second richest American ever, worth $200 billion, well above Bill Gates. Yet his children, and especially his grandchildren, lived lavishly, building huge mansions in New York City, Newport, Rhode Island, and elsewhere, and did little to preserve the fortune. By the 1970s, the family had held a reunion with 120 members attending, and there wasn't a millionaire among them. Now again, this is anecdotal, but like it's a trend. Like the odds are not in your favor in terms of like keeping wealth. Yeah. Yeah.
It wasn't Bruce Lee a martial artist?
Yes.
Okay.
Oh no, he was a philosopher.
What?
I mean, he was a martial artist, but he was a philosopher. Yeah.
Okay.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah. Like a legit philosopher.
Okay.
And all of my whole, everything I am as a teacher comes from my role models, my personality, and Bruce Lee. Bruce Lee. Yeah, we'll have to have a Bruce Lee talk later on. So just to summarize here, now that I have the PowerPoint, right? So this is how I had it last time, but maybe we could tweak this as we go. Phase one was Chachma as a panacea. Chachma, and then the conclusion was Chachma solves some problems but reveals more problems. Phase two, escape into Simcha. And the conclusion was you can't escape reality through partying, and a life of partying doesn't accomplish anything. Phase three, worldly enjoyments. Conclusion, it's impossible to satisfy the ego's need for accomplishment through worldly enjoyments or achievements. Phase four, security in Chachma. Actually, that's a good title, right? That combines the Chacham lifestyle, but then shows that the security is what he was after. Chachma can certainly provide advantages in life, but it doesn't provide true security. It doesn't save one from death or from being forgotten. And in phase five, immortality through legacy. There's no guarantee that your legacy will last, since the person who inherits it might ruin it or fail to appreciate it. So let's end off by reading the pesukim for the conclusion. And this is the first. So one of the things we have to do here is there is an answer in Sefer Koheles. Like, what is the answer to the question of Yisron and man's quest for it? This is the first glimmer of the answer. And it's not the final answer, but it is the first time he says something that has the semblance of a conclusion. Okay, so let's think about this for next time. Ein tov ba'adam sheyochal v'shasa v'hera es nafsho tov ba'amalo. There's no good for a person. Am I mistranslating this? Ein tov ba'adam sheyochal v'shasa v'hera es nafsho tov ba'amalo. Gamzo ra'isi ani ki miyad ha'elokim hi. It's weird. In my mind, I translate this as the only good for a person is to eat and drink. Like, there's no good except for that. Let me just quickly see something here. I don't have time to look in the Mefarshim right now because we have to go soon. But I'm just looking at the art scroll just to see how they translate it. They translate it as a rhetorical question. Is it not good for man that he eats and drinks and shows his soul satisfaction in his labor? Kimiyad halukimhi. Gamza ki miyad halukimhi. I also saw that this is from the hand of God. Kimi yochal umi yachush chutz mimeni. Who is going to eat and who's going to make haste aside from me? We don't know what make haste is. Yachush. Ki la'adam shetov lefanav nasan chachma v'das v'simcha. Because to the man who is good before him, before God, he gave wisdom and knowledge and joy. V'lachote, and to the sinner, nasan inyan le'esof v'lichnos, he gave the urge, I think is the best translation here, or the involvement to gather and amass, laseis latov lifnei ha'elkim, to give to the one who is good before God. Gam zeh hevel urus ruach. This is also futile and a frustration of spirit. Unclear what he's saying here. He's saying, so just to say it again in English, is there any good for a man other than eating and drinking and showing his soul satisfaction in his toil? I saw that this is from the hand of God, because who's going to eat and who's going to make haste besides me? Because the one who is good before God, God gave wisdom and knowledge and joy. But to the sinner, he gave the urge to amass and to gather and to give to the one who's good before God. And that's also Hevel. So what is he saying here? That'll be our question for next time. I got to go because I'm giving another class now, though. So, yeah. All right. So let's think about that for next time.
Thanks.
Thank
See you later.
you.
Thank you.
Thanks.